everyone to Market Like a CEO Post-Pandemic Marketing Plan. My name is Elise Bortolato with the Emerging Enterprise Center. I'm just going to do a few little asks. Is everyone can please mute themselves if they're not presenting today. We will have opportunity for asking questions either through Facebook Live, which we're allowed now live, or at the end. We encourage participants on this call to ask any questions you have to Rich. Again, we're really excited to have our keynote today, who is an award-winning marketing executive, Rich Smith with Chief Outsiders, and our moderator today, Greg Plum with Brandywine Technology, who's been a great partner, and he's also a member of the Newcastle County Chamber of Commerce. So first, I just wanted to briefly introduce those on the call to the Emerging Enterprise Center. We are a nonprofit business incubator with the Newcastle County Chamber of Commerce. And with that is an opportunity we provide the community with affordable co-working space, affordable dedicated office, and conference room space, as well as these really rich education programs that help startups and small businesses, really kind of accelerate that learning curve. As well as networking and mentorship opportunities. So I'm going to turn this presentation over to, again, our keynote today, and Greg Plum, who will better introduce Rich Smith with us. So Rich, I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to encourage you to start sharing.
All right, great.
While he's doing that, I'll go ahead and kick things off here. So I'm pleased to bring to you Rich today. I've actually known Rich for about 30 years. We discovered it. It's how fast time flies. And we met each other back in early banking days at MBNA a few decades ago. And since then, he's gone on to be a CMO for such brands as Ditech Mortgage, which everybody I'm sure has seen advertised. Very big on the NASCAR scene for a while there. So Rich has gone on to a few very fun, I'd say diverse experiences. So with that, we're really pleased to bring him here today because we're at a point, a very, very strange time we've never been before. And it's now time to start thinking ahead. And, when you're marketing, you have to think weeks or months ahead. You don't start you don't start thinking what you're going to be doing tomorrow. So with that, Rich, the floor is yours. And we're now in, I don't know if we're actually seeing the presenter view.
Okay, let me see if I can fix that. 1 second. I'm gonna go here. You see the right thing now?
Yep, we're perfect.
Okay, great.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Greg. I really appreciate the warm introduction. It has been a number of years that we've known each other now, and I really appreciate the invitation to present to you all today. We've got a lot to go through. I'm going to try to keep things moving, but as Greg said, and Alyssa also said, any questions that you have, please shoot them in. I can't actually see the chat come in, but I know Greg can, and he's not shy about interrupting me to ask a question. So let's get rolling. I want to start by just reminding everybody that, we have a choice. COVID was thrown on us. We didn't get to choose the current circumstances, but we can choose how we react to them and how we adjust and choose our own path forward. And a lot of them I'm going to talk about today, I think, is really about making a conscious choice as opposed to just allowing things to happen to us from a marketing and business perspective. So the agenda that we'll go through, we'll give you a little bit of context, background, what's happening in the economy and how we think about the recovery. I want to talk about the difference between just surviving versus thriving in the recovery. Give you a 12-step checklist to go through as you build your recovery marketing plan, some tools that you can use to help with that along the way. As well as a little bit of a deeper discussion about how the pandemic has affected the buyer's journey. And that will apply whether you're a B2B business or a B2C business. And in that, some critical success factors like aligning sales and marketing and really upping your digital game for your business. So let's start with some insights from Vistage. I imagine there are probably a lot of Vistage members in the audience. This is a mainly mid-market peer-to-peer advisory group that is a global organization, and they've been doing a lot to support their members through the pandemic. And one of the very interesting things that they put out was to help us think about the current environment was what they call the Corona curve. And really, when you think about it, we sort of started over there to the left of the curve with kind of denying that this was really happening. And then the market crashed and we realized, hey, this is a reality. Then we started to search for the bottom. Right now, we're probably, it's hard to tell, but I'm just judging from my clients, what I'm seeing from business development that they're doing, we're probably roughly at or just past the bottom and starting to see the green shoots, signs of life as we move into the recovery and then what will finally be the new normal. So how has this impacted us? Again, Vistage did a survey of its members. This would mainly be CEOs of mid-market businesses, asking them about how the pandemic affected their revenues. And over 75% saw some kind of decline in revenue, with only about 25%, either seeing an increase or roughly staying stable. Through ITR Economics, which is a very highly accurate economic forecasting organization. In fact, there's a link there if you want to get a free trial to ITR's trends. I highly recommend them. They're forecasting a down year in 2020. Great, no surprise. I mean, we know we're in a recession right now, but likely starting to see the recovery into the third and fourth quarter. And then looking at perhaps a very strong 2021 and 2022. So most experts agree, most economists agree that we are at the bottom, starting to come out, and that there probably will be a very strong recovery later this year and then through to next year. We also did a survey where we talked to our own clients. There are about 70 of us in Chief Outsiders nationwide. At any given time, we're probably working with 200 or so individual clients, and we surveyed them to talk to them about the impact that it was having on them. I want to stop for a minute before I show you the results and just think about your business. And has the pandemic had kind of a catastrophic, all the way down the continuum to positive, just sort of get a mental picture of where you are with your business. What we found was that roughly 64% of our clients were negatively impacted, with very few actually seeing any kind of positive increase. However, we also asked the CEOs of our clients how they felt about the future. And the good news is 64% are actually optimistic about the future. So while roughly the same percentage have seen a negative impact, there's a lot of optimism out there about their ability to recover and excel in the future. So going back to the Corona curve and how you might think about what's the right strategy at different time phases on this curve, over there to the left, while we were in the midst of the crisis, that's clearly crisis strategy. As you get to the bottom, though, and we start to come out, and that's likely where we are now, now is the time where you need to think about, do I need to make a pivot in my business? And how do I prepare for growth in the recovery out into the future? So let's talk about surviving versus thriving. We know that the world has changed. There have been significant shifts in buyer behavior, everything from working at home, buying our groceries online, picking up meals at restaurants, curbside. If you just keep on doing what you're doing today, you're in survival mode. But what we really want to be in is we want to thrive. And in order to thrive in the recovery in a new world where buyer behavior, consumer behavior has changed, we need to do something different.
And hey, Rich, I think the thing that's really important is this change has happened in the last 90 days. That's the part that is the most staggering to me.
It is staggering. I mean, whole industries have gone digital. in the last 90 days. I was speaking to a former colleague in the mortgage business just a week ago, and I remember when I was CMO of Ditech, we had thousands of people processing mortgage loans sitting in cubicles in a massive office building. Today, all these mortgage companies are still in business, but everybody's working from home. An entire industry went digital in 60 days. And that's just one example, right? I mean, it is a staggering change. Yep. Psychologists will tell you that it takes about 66 days to form a new habit. We're past that point. So people have new habits that are now locked in. And that's the majority of this presentation is talking about why we need to adjust and how to adjust. So thinking about where will your recovery come from, I find this sort of 2x2 matrix to be a very useful chart. And this is just a simple chart of customers versus products and services. And you need to think about this in terms of will your recovery come from your current customer segments and your current products? So that's really, you're talking about revenue share gain, right? Maybe competitors have not made it through and the competition landscape has changed and there's an opportunity to grab share. Or, will your growth, will your recovery come from current customer segments and new product and service offerings? In other words, extending your product line with the same customer. Conversely, will your recovery come from your current products, but selling them to new customer segments? Or lastly, that top right corner, does it require a complete business pivot to think about new customer segments, new markets, and new product and service offerings?
So Rich, is there a way, what should a company be doing? And you might be getting to this. You just gave 4 examples. What should a company be doing today to identify the lowest hanging fruit?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to get to in the next few slides, Craig. So if we could just hold that, I will, and you can tell me if I didn't appropriately answer that question. We'll come back to it, I promise.
I promise.
So, all right. I wanted to talk a little bit about what does marketing look like for most mid-sized companies, or how do they think about marketing? Really, I often think about marketing as an expense, right? I have to pay money to be a website, to build my website, to be at trade shows, sales collateral, social media, email marketing. And I spend all this money and I don't really know how or why, but then leads come in and those leads lead to sales. My sales force takes over and converts those leads into sales. We like to think about Marketing at Chief Outsiders as more of a strategic growth engine that has 3 gears. And those 3 gears are, it starts with insights. The knowledge that you need about your customer segments, about your competition, and really about the strengths and weaknesses and capabilities of your own company. Gathering insights gives you the knowledge that you need to build effective strategy in the 2nd gear. Strategies are things like, what markets should you be in? What's your go-to-market strategy? What products and services are you offering? How much should you charge for them? How do you position or message effectively in order to reach those targeted customer segments? Effective strategy then finally leads to efficient execution, which is where most people want to jump to right away, the execution, and they skip the insight and the strategy step. And the execution is really where you talk about tactics and resources and metrics. Right? So again, what is marketing? Well, most think of marketing as these things: logos, promotion, lead gen, website, sales collateral. But we like to think of marketing a little bit different. I call those things little m marketing, or the tactical marketing. And what many organizations miss is big M marketing, or the strategic side. The insights and the strategy work that lead to effective execution. So I want to give you a little bit of an example of how the world has changed. This is something that we can probably all relate to. So think about buying a car. Do you remember what buying a car used to be like? It used to be like dealing with this guy, right? The salesperson had all the information. They knew what the car cost. They knew how much they were making on it. They knew what the dealer had to pay for it. They knew all the technical features and information, and they were armed. And you had to show up at the sales lot and deal with this guy. But today, how do you buy a car? You do all the research. You go to cars.com, you go to Edmunds, you know the value, you know what the dealer paid for it. You can do an easy comparison where you line up all the features and benefits of the various models on your screen. So you do all that research and you're armed with a ton of information before you ever even show up at the dealer lot. And you don't have to go to 5 or 6 to check out different cars. You probably only engage with maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe even 1.
Hey, Rich, the other thing that I love about these sites, some of them will even tell you, this is a good deal. This is a great deal. So it's just looking at history. It's looking at all the other, the comps essentially.
Yeah.
It really made it pretty brain dead simple. So that guy that you saw on the previous slide who, you know, thinks of himself as kind of a big deal is no more.
Yeah. And you know, it's not just this industry. It's pretty much every industry. You know, the buyer's journey has really changed. I mean, I can't see you guys raise your hands, but if you could raise your hands and tell me how many of you would really like to get a sales call today, have a salesperson call you, I can't imagine there's too many hands that are going up. We all do our research online. It doesn't matter if it's B2B or B2C. We do our research online before we even want to interact with a salesperson. So much of the buyer's journey is now digital. I mean, it depends on your industry. It could be 50%, it could be 80%, but most sales research will tell you that it takes 7 to 13 touches before a buyer wants to interact with a salesperson. And all of that connection is typically happening in the digital world. It's happening with your websites, your digital advertising, the email that you send out, the LinkedIn, your LinkedIn page, your social media. The net result of this is that the sales funnel is still the same. All right, it's still the, you know, awareness, interest, leads to consideration, intent, evaluation, and purchase. But the roles and responsibilities in the sales funnel have shifted. It used to be that marketing's responsibility was really to generate awareness and interest, and then sales took over from there once a lead contacted. But now, due to this shift in the buyer's journey, and so much of the buyer's journey occurring digitally before there's a contact with a person, marketing is really responsible for that buyer's journey all the way down to the evaluation phase. And that's really where sales kicks in and takes over. Instead of prospecting to try to generate leads, sales is really spending their time now working with qualified leads and taking them through the close phase.
So Rich, in general, would you say that costs clearly have shifted from sales into marketing? Would you say overall that the total expense for a company is remained largely the same, with some of it shifting, you know, from the back end sales to the front end marketing, or have costs gone up?
Yeah, possibly, and it would depend on the industry, and it's a matter of degrees, of course. But yes, in general, there should be a shift in budget, emphasis, and focus from sales to marketing, which likely means that, you know, maybe you need a different marketing skill set, maybe you need more marketing people, or you know, a higher budget or spend in the marketing category. But perhaps it also means that you might need fewer salespeople, but better salespeople. Because again, sales is not spending their time smiling and dialing anymore. Your salespeople should really be your closers. They're getting highly qualified leads that have gone through these other phases of the funnel, and their job is to negotiate price, close the deal, serve the customer.
Got it.
So let's move on and talk about your post-pandemic marketing checklist. So the checklist really, again, starts with insights. And the way to gather insights is ask yourself some key questions. How have your customer needs or buying habits changed? Have your competitors responded? What are their next moves? Is there less competition? Is there more competition? Maybe some of them have gone out of business. What strengths, weaknesses exist in your company? How have they changed? Has learning to work in a virtual digital environment added some new skill set, some new capability that you don't have? Or do you perhaps have a weakness? You know, if a lot of your selling used to occur face to face, do you now need to learn how to sell in a virtual world? How have economic forecasts affected your customers? You know, there are some segments of the economy that are doing great right now. If they happen to be your customers, maybe that's good for you. So you got to think through what is the impact? What impact has it had on your core customer segments? Some tools that you can use to gather insights are things like win-loss reviews, online tools to assess your digital capabilities like Website Grader or SpyFu, doing interviews with key account executives, competitive analysis, surveying your own employees, doing a simple SWOT analysis, secondary research like ITR that I mentioned before, and then doing a digital assessment. And I will talk about digital assessments a little late in a little bit more depth later on in the presentation. The second phase of your checklist is your strategy checklist. Prioritize your markets and segments. Figure out how you're going to serve them. You know, go back to that grid that we talked about. You know, is it same customer segments, same products, same customer segments, new products, et cetera. Take a fresh look at what you're offering. You might need to adjust features. You might need to adjust your distribution. Think about how do you expand your distribution digitally. You might need to think about different pricing. Overhaul your positioning or messaging. There's a lot of and I've seen it. You guys have probably seen it too. There's a lot of cringeworthy messaging out there that is not, you know, appropriate given the change in environment with the pandemic. There are a lot of brands that need to really think about repositioning themselves. And, you know, consider, have there been disruptive moves? Can you make a disruptive move? Some strategy.
I hear one more commercial that says, during these trying times.
Oh, no, unprecedented time. Will people please stop starting every email with, at these unprecedented times? That phrase is worn out.
Agreed.
Right? So, you know, some strategic tools you can use. Again, that simple 4x4 grid, it's amazing what you can come up with if you really use that to think through, you know, your current situation. Changing market segmentation. You know, do you need to take a look at redoing buyer personas in your positioning, product, and pricing reviews? Third phase of the checklist, items 10 through 12. Now we finally get to execution. Really, I encourage you to resist the temptation to jump to execution first. Really do the insight and strategy work, and your execution will be so much stronger. But in the execution phase, understand the realities of the resources that you need or have to deploy. You know, what are the capabilities of your people? What financial resources do you have? Do you need to upgrade your systems and technology? Know the core tactics that you'll use to reach your target buyers. Understand how you're going to measure success. Please do not skip measurement. Right? If you are not measuring what you're doing, you have no idea whether it's really working or not. And one of the benefits to making a shift to doing more digital is the ability to measure in the digital environment is vastly superior to offline traditional media. Tools that you can use in the execution phase, understanding the metrics in your funnel, sales and marketing alignment, which we'll speak about a little bit more in detail, playbooks, and do you have the expertise to execute? Do you need to bring in fractional resources, new vendors, do a website refresh, think about your SEO, your search engine optimization? So I do want to, because it's so important, and I think many of the companies that are on this call today, you know, have both marketing and sales. I want to talk in a little bit more detail about two topics. The first is sales and marketing alignment, and the second is digital assessment. So let's just for a minute define roles. Right? So what does marketing do? You know, marketing's job is really to take the perspective of the customer and look back at the organization from the customer's point of view and be that mirror that shows the organization what they look like to the customer. Marketing helps lead to the future. The marketing's job is to think about where the organization needs to be in the future, not necessarily where it is right now. It also has the responsibility of organizing towards segments where the company can profitably compete. It directs sales as to where they should be hunting and what ammo to use. And also with the transition to digital, it's more about being found than it is being thought of. So what does sales do? Sales develops relationships with customers and channel partners. They're the ones that knock down the doors, have to deal with objections, negotiate prices and terms. And the perspective that sales takes is different from marketing, that sales is taking the perspective from inside the organization out. And their time horizon is really just, this week, this month, this quarter. If sales isn't focused on what's going on right now, there might not be any revenue this week, this month, this quarter. Some things that I think really help to aid sales and marketing alignment are, start with an explicit agreement. Agree on the funnel metrics. Agree on the definitions. What is a qualified lead? Who are you focusing on? What's the ideal customer profile? And I really like to have, this might sound a little hokey or trite, but I really like to have service level agreements between sales and marketing. Similar to the way you would have a service level agreement with a vendor. Actually develop a service level agreement and have both groups sign off on it. And then there's no argument about what's a qualified lead, what's not, what's an appropriate response time to a qualified lead that comes in. You've got a good understanding between sales and marketing, you're aligned, and you're working as one team to improve the results for the company. Last major segment we'll go through is digital acceleration. Now, we all know that digital acceleration, digital transformation, that's been happening for a long time. Industries have been moving that direction, no question about it. But as we discussed earlier, when Greg brought it up, the pace and what has happened in the last 60 to 90 days is extreme, right? This, I think, is a pretty funny cartoon, which shows this like wrecking ball of COVID-19 that's coming in to, wake us all up, and we're going to realize that we're in a different world today from a digital perspective. Some examples of that. This is a quick research slide which shows, of all the people that have bought groceries online in the last 60 to 90 days, over 40% of them have done it for the first time. Walmart, this is an e-commerce example. You look at the last bar, 2020, Walmart's e-commerce sales have exploded. They've done more so far in 2020 than they did all of last year, up 44%. It's affecting every industry. This is a slide showing the movement to online banking and digital banking in the banking industry, with pretty much every income segment showing, almost 70% of consumers much or more likely to use digital banking and digital payments during the pandemic.
Well, I mean, Rick, most of this was driven out of necessity, right? And it takes people, right, out of their comfort zone. Sometimes you might not be comfortable doing your banking on your iPhone.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it's driven out of necessity. Walmart, people were going crazy buying toilet paper and Clorox wipes and all, groceries. If you're concerned about going to the grocery store, well, okay, I used to like to make sure I saw my produce, but maybe I'll try it and just see how it goes. And that's how new habits are developed, right? And whether it happened out of necessity or out of curiosity or interest doesn't really matter. What matters is that people are doing it over and over again, and now they've got a new habit. I mean, I know that if I never had to step foot in a grocery store for the rest of my life, I'd probably be a happy man. I click, click, click on my phone, and lo and behold, it shows up at my door a couple hours later. It's wonderful. And this slide shows that businesses are taking note, which is what's important to all of you, on this call. small, small SMB business owners are now 65% more likely to rely on e-commerce. All of that adds up to what I like to call the 2X rule for digital advancement. Because of this earthquake shift to digital over the last 60 to 90 days, everything from people working at home, getting used to working in a virtual world, to buying their groceries online, as we just talked about, habits have formed. And as a result, you need to be thinking about not just how you get better digitally, how do you get 2 times better? Expand your thinking. Think out into the future and say, it's not enough just to move ahead. I need to move a step function ahead. And how will you do that?
Wasn't that Wayne Gretzky's quote, "You skate where the puck's going"?
Yeah, that's a great quote. Wayne Gretzky would always say, I don't skate to where the puck is, I skate to where it's going to be. And that's my secret to success. One way, a kind of a simple tool, which you see on the right side of the screen, to begin to think about your digital advancement is do a simple SWOT. Look at what are your, just the digital perspective of your business. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Where are the new opportunities that have been created in the market, or perhaps competitive threats? Has your competition gotten better? How can you change how you interact with customers, your supply chain, et cetera, to become more digital? And what sort of investment is required to get you 2 times ahead of where you are today? I know this is a pretty complicated slide, but this is kind of my checklist for digital assessment. There are 6 areas that you need to focus on. And I think, Greg, you'll talk about it later, but anybody who emails me who wants a copy of this, as I understand you're not going to be able to read it all, I'm happy to send this to you along with the other checklists that I went and tools I went through earlier. But the 6 areas to think about: web traffic, search engine optimization, your digital advertising, your social media, what's the structure of your website, and then finally, what's the content of your website. And we've got some kind of research findings and insights recommendations across this checklist. So finally, just to summarize, remember that surviving and thriving are different. If you're just going to keep doing what you're doing today, you're going to be in survival mode for a long time. If you want to thrive, you've got to think about how has the world changed and how are you going to adjust to that change, and where are the opportunities? Where can you take advantage of it as you plan your recovery? Start with market insights. Align your strategy to the insights, and by doing that, you will have high confidence in your plan. Think about pricing and product adjustments. Get 2 times better at digital. Remember, it's not enough just to get a little bit better, just to keep advancing on the path that you're on. You have to make a step function ahead because the buyer's journey has changed so dramatically. Make sure you're aligning sales and marketing for effectiveness. Make sure they understand their roles. Again, I encourage you to do SLAs between service and marketing. And finally, remember, the execution stuff is the last step. Execution is little m marketing. Big M marketing is insights and strategy. So lastly, I just want to make a prediction that I'll throw out there to all of you. A year from now, you'll look back and you'll wish that you started today. So with that, Greg, I think we can open it up for questions.
Yeah, we do have some in here, and I think I love that. So basically, in so many words, now's the time to double down on your digital strategy and moving ahead, which I think is really.
Yeah. I mean, if I could leave you all with three things, make sure you're thinking about big M marketing, insights and strategy before execution. Align sales and marketing, and really do a hard look at your digital capabilities and think about how you're going to get 2 times better.
Very good. So we do have a question that came in from the audience. Can marketing and sales strategies discussed here be applied to all business types? What are the specific marketing and sales strategies for energy consulting firms?
Well, overall, yes, would be the answer. I think this approach can be applied to any business type, regardless of whether it's B2B or B2C. We talked about like the digital buyer journey. We used buying a car as an example, but in the B2B world, it's very, very similar. If you all are part of businesses, I'm sure you have vendors that want to sell you things. I asked you the question about how many of you want a sales call. You don't want sales calls either. As you're a buyer or a B2B consumer, your buying journey has changed. You do your research first before you want to talk to a salesperson or engage with that company. Specifically to energy consulting, I mean, I don't know your business. I'm gonna assume that it's professional services. And that's kind of what I do, professional services as well. I would say that, yes, this approach, we use it. We practice what we preach with our own business. As an example of a pivot that we made, we were starting this year really thinking about some new market segments. We wanted to go more upmarket. Most of our clients are mid-market businesses. We were thinking strategically about going more upmarket and starting to market to larger organizations. Then the pandemic hit and we scrapped that. We decided that now more than ever, our core client base really needs us. So we did a pivot and we decided to focus on staying solidly in the mid-market with what we currently do. And I think that's, again, using us as an example, that's kind of worked out. So I would encourage, whoever asked a question about energy consulting, to take a similar approach, go back to that 2x2 grid and think about where your recovery is going to come from.
I mean, one thing that we found at Brandywine Technology, so we're in IT staffing, what we found is there are certain segments of our business, of our customers that we just started to see they were really getting more, they were getting busy. They were starting to get stressed from an operational standpoint. There was demand for their service. So clearly that was the opportunity for us to step in and help focus with them, whereas others have scaled back. So it's, I think, in your grid with the 4 different types of ways to grow, in my opinion, and I know you said this, but I think that the lowest hanging fruit is your existing base. Find out how they behaved, and those that look like they've definitely picked up in activity and there's a enhanced need for their services. Those are the ones you should be focusing on because they need you now. And then it doesn't mean you ignore the others because they will come back around. But just being cognizant of those that are really, that have been really greatly impacted to the opposite end where there's been more demand for their service, that's where you're needed at this point.
Right. If that avenue is available to your business, it's always easier to sell again or to sell more to the customer that you already have than to go get a new customer. But if, let's say, you sell to the airline industry, that might be a difficult. So you may need to think about new customer segments, new markets, new offerings, right? So I would agree with you, Greg. If that's available to you, absolutely. It's like it was available to us, and we knew that current clients, past clients have a need, and we step in to fill that need.
Perfect. Another question that came in: can you tell us a little bit more about the digital assessment tools and how they'll help?
Yeah, definitely. So just a few examples. There's a website called websitegrader.com. It's a HubSpot product. Any of you right now could go online, stick your URL in there, hit submit, and it will spit out a bunch of metrics about your website. Things like, it'll grade your page load speed. It'll grade your overall SEO performance. I would encourage you to try it. This afternoon after you get off this call, punch it up and see how it works. And things like that will give you some indication of where you should be focusing, what you should be doing next. And as I said, anybody who would like the copy of that full grid checklist, happy to send it to you.
Very good. Let's see. Here's another one. From Aaron. Medical practice I represent is interested in expanding our presence using electronic media. Any advice on doing that in-house versus hiring a marketing professional? Of course, that's a logical question.
Well, certainly if you have the capability and expertise to do it in-house, then I would encourage you to do it in-house. But you might find that you don't. If you're going into a new area, that might be a time to think about, working with an outside expert, fractional resources. If you hire the right resource, that can often help you to avoid the mistakes that you might have made through trial and error. But if you take a clear-eyed view of it and you do have the capability to do it in-house, then that could be a cheaper way to get it done.
And you provided some tools, right? You've given some, and we'll make sure we provide this afterwards as well. There are some tools that you can use to get started, and you can find out where your weaknesses are.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sorry, what was the business, Greg? The question was about?
That was it was a medical practice.
Okay. Again, I don't know your business specifically, but something like probably content marketing would likely, in an increase in content marketing, would likely be something that perhaps you're not doing today that might, extend your digital presence.
So we're going to go right here. We're at a point where we've hit the end of these questions. We can go to live questions. So that was from Aaron. Aaron, do you want me to put you on the spot? You're welcome. You've got the floor if you'd like to elaborate. You'd have to unmute yourself. Maybe not. All right. Well, let's see. She said no thanks. Not a problem at all. I want to give you the opportunity. Not a problem. Well, we will give you again. You'll have the opportunity to follow up after this, with no pressure, when nobody's looking at you. Anything else? Anybody else want to? If you want to go into you can raise your hand if you like, or if you just want to, since everybody's been pretty well behaved here. If you just want to unmute yourself and chime in, please feel free. Rich, I think you answered everybody's marketing question. Can you imagine?
Wow.
It's pretty impressive.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Maybe I just threw so much information at everybody that they can't process.
Their eyes are glazed. So that's a good point. There was a ton of information in this. And that was when I first saw the deck, I thought, holy mackerel, this is an awful lot to digest. So what we're going to do is we'll put together, Rich said he'd compile, kind of an abbreviated version of this that's going to be a little more bite-sized, but give you meaningful tools to be able to take and run with and try to implement and see how your website stacks up, and look at where maybe some of your marketing versus your sales may not be aligned. So we can make sure that's available to everybody that registered for this event after the fact. And this obviously has been recorded as well. Hold on, one more, let's see. Jim, could you speak more about the role value proposition, the role value proposition play in strategy? Oh, value proposition, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And you whoever asked the question, put that in the right place.
I'm gonna call him out on that. That's a great question.
Yeah. So value proposition or really refining or defining your value proposition really appropriately occurs as you're building strategy. And it is one of the key pieces of your go-to-market strategy is having a clear understanding of your value proposition and perhaps even more importantly, how you communicate your value proposition. How do you message around it? You do need to gather insights in order to develop an effective value proposition, or one that's going to work, and then figure out how do you message it. I can't tell you how many times I hear when I ask, because I will do this when I start working with a client, I'll always ask them, like, tell me why I should buy from you. What are you the best, the first, the fastest, the only, the cheapest at? And you can't say people, service, and quality. You can't use any of those three because everybody uses those three, right? And I see some smiles from faces on the screen right now. That's a critical question to ask yourself. Why should a customer buy from you? And you can't say people, service, and quality because they're already saying that. So you've got to come up with a different reason.
That's excellent. Here's another one, and this is a really good question from Matthew Laird. What do you expect to see in the way of pay-per-click, the pay-per-click pricing? Do you expect that to be, spiking because of the shift to digital?
I think it'll be industry specific. It really depends on the business that you're in and what kind of competition is out there in the pay-per-click world. I've seen dramatic differences in keywords across different industries. So I don't know that there's a general trend. I mean, the general trend is more and more buying of keywords, but it's a supply and demand thing. If the volume is going up, it's hard to predict exactly what would happen to pay-per-click prices.
So
Very
I actually have a personal example of this. After 9/11, the use of conferencing services, I was in the conferencing business, skyrocketed, right? People came out of the woodwork because nobody wanted to travel anymore. Everybody saw the value of online communication. We saw pay-per-clicks go up 10x. I mean, almost overnight.
Mhm.
$300 a click is what it was costing back then.
Yeah, it's absolutely supply and demand driven, and it's going to be very industry specific.
All right, anything else? Hold on. Oh, yep, hold on, it's coming in. Give me a sec. Okay, from Nicole, I'm an inspirational speaker promoting health and wellness as a lifestyle with an emphasis on stress management. This is your day. My focus given these unprecedented times, LOL, is working moms who are home and homeschooling. The demands for their time and attention are increasing along with their levels of stress. My challenge is shifting my business to a virtual platform. Any ideas? Oh my goodness. Well, I'm going to chime in for a real quick second here. I just saw on a news story, I think it was last night, where there was a babysitting service that popped up within the last 60 days, and it was all virtual. Now I know it's hard to say that it's not truly babysitting, but it's almost like personal Elmo, where you used to put the iPad in front of the kid and let the kids do their thing. Now it's personal. So there are services, subscriptions like that. So right now is the time for services like yours, Nicole. I think now is absolutely the time to shift that to virtual, and people are more willing to consume where they may not have been. They may have wanted to see that in person, 3 months ago,
Yeah.
4 months ago. Now they're going to be more open to consuming in that fashion, giving you a whole new opportunity. I mean, that's where you could have a subscription service. There's it's limitless, your opportunities at this point. And I don't think it's really our point on this session to tell you which services to use, which technologies. But right now we're using Zoom pretty well, I might add, and Facebook Live. So
Yeah, I would just add to that. I've been the CMO of a behavioral health company, and I've also worked with several behavioral health clients, and they're seeing an explosion in telehealth right now. The massive increases in delivering their services through telehealth, telemedicine, various different platforms. So yeah, I would totally second everything that you just said, Greg. I think that's spot on.
very good. Let's see, anything else? Well, that looks like everything. Hold on a second. My audio flipped out there. So it looks like we're good here. Any other questions, last minutes? All right. Hey, listen, Rich, I want to thank you so much for the time. This has been gold, marketing gold, really good stuff. So thank you for the time. Thank you for the insights, and really the opportunity to look at this time with optimism. And the good news is the governor is starting to lift the restrictions. So here we go. Game on.
Yeah, thanks very much, Greg. I enjoyed it. Appreciate the opportunity, and hope you all have a great day and start building your recovery plans.
Sounds great. Rich, thanks so much. Have
All
a
right,
good one.
I'm going to just jump in here real quick. Thank you both. Rich, it's just wonderful being able to have this presentation with you. It was a great presentation. Greg, thank you as always as being our moderator and being a good partner for these educational events that we've been doing. And thanks everyone for joining us on today's webinar, and those who are joining us on Facebook Live. So one thing I just wanted to jump in and say is the Emerging Enterprise Center, after hearing all your questions, I see that you guys are really, we know you're needing this direction or help or assistance in getting you guys, ready for this new virtual reality that we're in. So we actually, this June, we have coming up a workshop with Short Order Productions here in Delaware, and they're going to be talking about how to put on virtual events, professional virtual events from home, how to create videos from home, and then we're also going to be, and Rich spoke about, e-commerce. E-commerce is going to be big in the next as companies have to kind of change their models to being more online. So we're going to be addressing, email marketing, sales, and then also e-commerce. We're going to have Shopify representatives here in June. So there are going to be great content pieces that the Emerging Enterprise Center will be putting on, just like today's webinar with Rich. So there'll be more content for you guys to take in, and we hope you stay tuned for our business education workshops that are coming up this summer and this fall, all virtual. And we really appreciate everyone joining us today, and we cannot thank Rich and Greg enough for putting on such a really in-depth educational experience for our members and the business community here in Delaware. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye to everyone, and thank you so much. I will be sharing Rich's information in a follow-up email, as well as that great slide that he had, to make sure everyone has all of those great